Questions? Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Mental Health and Substance Abuse. Can the Minister detail to the House why mental health was left out of the Transforming Health process?
Minister.
Well, it wasn't. We've had a parallel process with regard to mental health. In particular, I've made quite clear that mental health patients spend far too long in our emergency departments, and I am determined to see that reduced. We've had a body of work going on within the Central Adelaide Local Health Network dealing with patient flow through the mental health service. So it's simply not true to say that it's been left out of Transforming Health. It's a key part of it.
Leader.
Well, thank the Minister for his answer. Earlier this year, on the 4th of February, the Minister, talking about the mental health reform agenda, said that, and I quote, basically it's a body of work that needs to be done by this winter. Given that winter has come and gone, can the Minister update the House on what was the outcome of that reform agenda?
Minister.
Well, the improvements in patient flow through Central Adelaide with the work that's been done there have been significant, and I'm more than happy to brief the House when I've got that information in front of me. I can detail exactly the improvements that have been made with regard to the work we've done in Central Adelaide, but there has been significant improvement in that area.
The Deputy Leader is called to order. The Leader.
Given that the Minister has just outlined to the House that there has been significant improvement in the Central Adelaide health system, can he perhaps provide an explanation as to why there were 16 patients over capacity in the Central Adelaide system as of 11:30 this morning?
Minister.
I presume that the Leader of the Opposition is referring to mental health patients, and we did over the weekend and late last week have a significant surge in the number of mental health patients who are presenting to our health system. We have had mental health patients being delayed in emergency departments because in a very short period of time, over a couple of days, I'll get the exact statistics for the Leader of the Opposition if he's actually interested, but in a very short period of time we did have a significant number of mental health patients presenting for treatment to the emergency departments across the system, and yes, there were some delays with those mental health patients being processed through the ED and into mental health beds.
Leader.
Well, just on this issue of the Central Adelaide mental health backlog, can the Minister explain why this problem has existed for some time? In fact, analysis shows that some 75% of the mental health patients who are stuck in emergency departments waiting for an inpatient bed come from just two hospitals, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and the Royal Adelaide Hospital. And what active steps is the Minister taking to address this chronic problem?
The active steps that we're taking is rolling out short stay wards, which have been demonstrated to be very effective in improving flow of mental health patients through our emergency departments. We've got now a short stay ward at the Royal Adelaide Hospital and at the Flinders Medical Centre, and we're investigating the possibility of rolling out short stay wards to at least 2 other locations at the moment, and I hope we can make a decision about that very, very shortly. I think with regard to the issues we've had in mental health, I think when we implemented the Stepping Up report, certain assumptions were made about the ability of ICC beds to be able to substitute acute care beds, which I think have proven to be misplaced, and we do need to have another look at that. We also need to look at how our ICC beds work to make sure that the chronic type patient who tends to have a very long length of stay in acute beds have those patients transferred into ICCs where they can be better looked after, and so that the acute bed can be released for a patient who's waiting in the emergency department. These are a number of body of work that's been going on, and we are implementing these changes.
Leader.
Thank you. Does the Minister stand by his commitment made on radio earlier this year that by January next year no patients will be waiting for a mental health bed for more than 24 hours in our emergency departments, and how are we tracking against that commitment that was made in February of this year?
Of course I stand by it. There's no reason why I would change it. If I was to change it, I would announce it. We have had significant improvement.
The member for Unley is called to order.
we have had significant improvement in patient flow through the emergency departments, and I'd like to thank everyone who's been involved in seeing the improvements we have seen. We still have some way to go. I am determined that my commitment will be met, and I'll be doing everything I can to make sure it is met, and I'll be holding people accountable if my commitments are not met.
Leader.
Just for clarity, is there going to be a specific mental health or transforming mental health document that's put out for consultation, or is this just something that occurs within the normal operation of the department?
Minister.
Well, I mean, there are a number of documents with regard to mental health, but certainly I don't think mental health patients in emergency departments are too worried about seeing a document. I don't think our doctors and nurses are too worried. I won't be lectured by the Leader of the Opposition about health reform. The Leader of the Opposition about health reform. I will not be lectured by someone of his moral fibre about concern for mental health patients. I will not be lectured by the Leader of the Opposition. But the simple fact is, Mr. Speaker, that we do need to change and improve the flow of mental health patients through the system. As I've repeatedly said, it is completely unacceptable for a mental health patient to have to wait more than 24 hours before admission into an acute care bed, and we're taking a number of steps to make sure the commitments I have given are met.
The member for Colton.
Thank you very much, sir. My question was that directed at me, Vicky? Hey, I'm wide awake. My question is to the Minister for Investment and Trade. Yes. What funding assistance does the government offer businesses seeking to attend international trade shows?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for Colton for his question, because the government uses a number of strategies to incentivise and support investment and export activity, because this government understands the importance of international markets to growth in our states, something the laughing, chortling Leader of the Opposition knows nothing about. We've paid particular attention to China, India and Southeast Asia.
Is warned.
Markets in the first instance with our outbound missions, because these are emerging economies with high growth trajectories. These are economies where the potential for greater two-way trade has been held back by a number of factors. The state government, therefore, has an important role in supporting businesses to overcome.
Point of order.
Mr. Speaker, can I take a point of order? As attractive as it is to see these two former titans of the Liberal Party going at it, hammer and tongs across the table, I would like to hear my minister give his ministerial statement.
Answer his question. Answer his question.
Well, answer his question.
Yeah. The member for Colton is called to order, and indeed I forgot to issue the warnings from the last round, and they are: I call to order the members for Davenport, Carville, Hammond and Hartley, and I warn for the first time the Leader and the Deputy Leader. Now, before the Minister resumes, I have allowed ministers sometimes to heap buckets on the Leader in answers when he has provoked them. But on this occasion, I believe the provocation is from the Minister. And like the Premier, I would like to hear the answer. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The state government has an important role in supporting business to overcome barriers by facilitating inbound and outbound trade missions to match businesses and establish contracts. We've seen multi-million-dollar deals emerge from these missions as recently as today, because in the past 24 hours we've seen more significant agreements struck for mining, for agriculture, dairy, aged care, health services and Medicare or medicine. The government also operates an export partnerships program, which allows businesses to seek matched grant funding of up to $50,000 for export activity. The program underwent a significant reform this year, removing restrictions on exporters' applications, including a doubling of the available funds from $25,000 to $50,000, removing the caps for individual activities including research in overseas markets, marketing materials, export training and mentoring and international trade participation, reducing the minimum turnover threshold requirement from $150,000 to $100,000 and allowing companies to apply for grants on multiple occasions up to a total of $50,000. That is why, Mr Speaker, and I've repeated the facts today, I was interested to read about, quote, alternative plans, end of quote, for export growth in the state from the Leader of the Opposition. If a business wanted to go to a trade show in Malaysia for $100,000, as was suggested by the Leader of the Opposition when he said, and I quote, "We'd put 50 grand and say you put in 50 grand. We'd have a sum of money where people put in innovative ideas matched with their own expenditure in markets they've defined for themselves. We'd let businesses themselves determine where their product offering has the best opportunity and we'd put very few restrictions on it," end of quote. Well, that's exactly what the government's done, Mr Speaker. Exactly. It sounds extraordinarily like the Export Partnership Program. A briefing is available if requested. So if a South Australian export business wants to prepare products or prepare for attendance at or attend in Malaysia an export event for $100,000, they'd be able to do exactly that using our program. For half the funding, we'll provide half and they'll provide half. So much for the alternative plan. Well, the only thing is, you announced it a year after we introduced it. That's the only thing about the alternative policy. It's a good idea if you're going to have one to get out there first. It's already been in place for over a year. A briefing is available if members...
Point of order, time on.
Thank you.
Deputy Leader.
The Minister is accusing you of publishing certain documents, which is...
I uphold
Thank you.
the point of order and in the pause, I call to order the members for Chaffey, Adelaide and Mount Gambier. Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I would just remind members opposite that over 200,000 jobs in South Australia depend on exports either interstate or overseas. I encourage exporters to apply for an Export Partnership Program grant. This government stands ready to partner with them. We are, right now, we've taken dozens and dozens of them overseas. Just talk to them and you will be informed. We are out there creating jobs and getting on with the job in very difficult economic times.
I warn for the first time the members for Chaffey, Mount Gambier, Hartley and Hammond. The Leader.
Thank you very much, sir. My question is to the Minister for Health. Further to answers that he provided in the previous questions regarding delays for accessing of mental health inpatient beds in the central Adelaide region, is the Minister aware that there are also significant delays in accessing urgent Category 1 elective surgery in the Central Adelaide Health Network?
Well, I'm
Minister.
more than happy to make comparisons between this government's record on elective surgery and the previous government. Simple fact is, 30th of June, we had no overdue elective surgery. We'd got through the year and completed all our elective surgery lists within the clinical recommended times, result of which we're very, very proud. Now, of course, coming out of winter, we have had to postpone some elective surgery. There's nothing new in that. That's an unfortunate but regular occurrence in wintertime. Both, whatever government is in office, that sometimes has to happen in order to create capacity in the system. When you have people turning up to our emergency departments who are in need of hospitalisation, we do have to create capacity. But I'm very, very confident that, as in last year, and I'm pretty sure the year before that, we will end the year with no overdue elective surgery.
Leader.
Can the minister provide some explanation to the House as to why over 85% of the Category 1 urgent elective surgery, which has gone beyond the 30-day mark, is from the Central Adelaide Local Health Network, that is the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and the Royal Adelaide Hospital?
Well, I'm more than happy to get a report back from my department about why Central Adelaide might be overly represented, if in fact it is. But that's something I'll get some information from. You've always got to be careful coming into this place when the opposition start producing statistics, because more often than not it's wrong. But nonetheless, I'm more than happy to have a look. And if it is the case,
He's debating the substance of the question.
The Treasurer is called to order. Minister.
more than happy to have a look. Of course, it may well be that simply because Central Adelaide does a significant proportion of the elective surgery in the system, that may be one of the reasons. It may well be that we've had to postpone more elective surgery within Central Adelaide. You've got to remember a lot of the reason why sometimes elective surgery is cancelled and people on the list is because the patient initiates the cancellation for the elective surgery. And of course, this is one of the reasons why we're trying to make reforms in our hospital system, because we know that there are better ways to do elective surgery. We know that when you separate your elective surgery from your emergency surgery, you have fewer cancellations, you have greater reliability that elective surgery can happen without cancellation when you stream it. And that's why today we've been very, very happy to announce they'll be building 2 additional operating theatres, larger operating theatres, reforming or refurbishing the pre-operative and post-operative areas of the Noarlunga Hospital, something that the member for Ghana and the member for Renell have been agitating. It's something that is much needed in their electorates, and what that will enable us to do is for patients in the south and for people who live in the south, that there'll be more, that we'll be able to do more elective surgery, we'll be able to stream that elective surgery, there'll be fewer cancellations, we'll be able to get through that elective surgery, those elective surgery lists, and get down the number of people who are waiting for elective surgery, get down the waiting lists, which of course is a key thing that we're attempting to achieve through Transforming Health. And I'm pleased that the opposition are so concerned about elective surgery. It'd be great to hear their support, the reforms we're making to some key hospitals to make sure that we can improve our elective surgery results.
Leader.
Does the situation with extensive delays in accessing inpatient mental health beds and also elective surgery in the Central Adelaide Local Health Network point to broader systemic problems within that local health network?
No, I don't think it does. I'm not sure what the Leader of the Opposition is referring to when he says to systemic problems, but of course Central Adelaide and the Royal Adelaide Hospital is our key quaternary hospital in this state, and it is at the front end. The highest acuity cases go to the Royal Adelaide Hospital. It's our major trauma centre, so in terms of complexity, it's has the highest rates of complexity in our state. When there are issues there, of course, it might just be a reflection of the complexity of the sorts of presentations that go to the Royal Adelaide Hospital. Perhaps if the Leader of the Opposition wants to elaborate what he's referring to, what he's hinting at, be more than happy to hear.
Supplementary. So is the Central Adelaide Local Health Network particularly affected as it struggles to complete the new Royal Adelaide Hospital, prepare for the arrival of EPAS and the sacking of a large number of SA pathology staff, all while awaiting the arrival of the new Chief Executive Officer?
Well, we've appointed a new Chief Executive Officer. She'll start shortly. Of course, there's enormous complexity associated with all of the things that are happening at the Royal Adelaide Hospital. The new move to the new Royal Adelaide Hospital was a project of considerable complexity to basically move the Quaternary Hospital in the state, from one end of North Terrace to the other end of North Terrace, is of course an issue of significant complexity. We're also asking our doctors and nurses not only to move hospitals, but of course to adopt new models of care, which they'll have to adopt in the new hospital. It will work significantly differently from the existing Royal Adelaide Hospital, and all those changes are things of enormous complexity. I think it would be drawing too long a bow then to say that that therefore is the reason for issues with regard to elective surgery and mental health. These problems, elective surgery waiting lists and mental health, dealing with mental health patients and delays of mental health patients in emergency departments are not limited to Central Adelaide. They're not even limited to South Australia. These are problems that governments around the world, Western governments around the world, are grappling with how to deal with an increasing burden of chronic illness, increasing demand for hospital services. This is not something in which Central Adelaide is unique, let alone South Australia.
Can the Minister outline to the House how many chief executives and acting chief executives the Central Adelaide Local Health Network has had in the past 2 years?
The member from Morford is called to order. Minister.
Well, we've had obviously David Panter, who resigned recently, and then we've had an acting chief executive take his place. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to act for the entire period we would have liked to have had, and so the chief executive of Country Health has been acting in her place, and both of those acting chief executives were stellar chief executives or executives in the health system, and have done a fantastic job. Both of them far more competent than the failed Leader of the Opposition, and I would hold them up above the Leader of the Opposition any day when it comes to competence.
I call to order the Minister for Health, who made an entirely redundant remark about the Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I have enormous esteem for both of these women, and if certain people want to, in a very cowardly way, cast aspersions on two stellar executives and then have the cowardice to then deny it, it's quite galling to listen to. But I have nothing but admiration for these two women, and when the new chief executive takes her place, she will also be a stellar chief executive in that role. Chief executive of a hospital local health network, Mr. Speaker, I think is probably one of the most difficult jobs in government, and I think the chief executives and the new chief executive will do a fabulous job in what is a very, very difficult role.
Minister, having been a minister, I value loyalty of ministers to their public servants. And I understand his indignation that he felt the Leader was reflecting on them. Readers of Hansard will make their own assessment. But it does not give the Minister the right to make pejorative remarks about the Leader, and that is why I called him to order. Leader.
Thank you very much. My question is to the Minister for the Health. Given that the Minister has previously advised the Parliament that the government will be funding the ANMF's Transforming Health Liaison Officer, can the Minister explain to the House whether or not he is aware that one of the key skills sought for this officer is the ability to recruit and retain members of that union?
Oh, well, look, I'm more than happy to take that up and have a look at it. I'm not familiar with what the job specs have been that the ANMF have been put out, but I certainly don't apologise for making funds available to the ANMF. There is no doubt that transforming health is going to be a significant involve significant complexity for the ANMF, and we're going to be asking for the ANMF to communicate with their members some significant changes to the way they do work, and make no apologies for making resources available, funds available to the ANMF to enable them to go about their work and to be able to communicate effectively with their members the changes which we're asking of nurses in the South Australian health system.
Sir, is the minister suggesting that he's happy for state government funds to be expended on the provision of an officer for the ANMF, where it specifically states in their advertisement that in terms of the skills sought, that there must be an ability to recruit and retain members?
Well, look, I'm more than happy to have a look at that and just see. But look, if the opposition want to start attacking the ANMF, that's entirely up to them. But as far as I'm concerned,
Member Frunley is warned.
More than happy to make funds available to the ANMF to go about their business, representing their members, particularly at a time of considerable change for nurses, considerable change to the way nurses are having to go about their business. And I don't resolve for 1 minute, making funds available to the ANMF to enable them to do their work, representing their members at what's going to be a significantly challenging time as we reconfigure our health system.
The member for Chaffey is warned for the second and final time. The member from Morphett.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. A supplementary, given the minister's answer just then. Can the minister tell the House whether the Salaried Medical Officers Association, the Health Services Union, the AMA, the Public Services Association or the various general colleges, practitioners, surgeons, will they be getting funding from the government to fund their transforming health officers?
More than happy to give consideration to anyone who comes to us, as the ANMF did, seeking assistance. Of course, it would depend upon the complexity and the issues that they would face. But let's remember, the ANMF are easily the largest industrial organisation that is being affected by changes in transforming health, and I've got no issues at all with our decision to provide them with resources.
The member for Morphett.
Speaker, a further supplementary. Is the minister conducting discussions with the ANMF about changing the enterprise bargaining agreement to reduce overtime and penalty rates?
Not that I'm aware of. We've only just recently concluded the enterprise bargaining, or I think it was last year we concluded the enterprise bargaining process. Actually, it might have been 2013. We concluded the enterprise bargaining process. I think it's probably a 3-year. I think it's a 3-year EB. To my knowledge, it's not up for renegotiation. But the Liberal Party want to go to the ANMF and tell them that that's what they've got on the table. I'll leave that to them.
Leader.
Thank you very much. My question is to the Minister for Health. Given that the minister has outlined to the House that there is a $14 million budget increase for transforming health this financial year, can the minister outline to the House how much of that will be spent with the Transforming Health implementation partner?
Minister.
Well, we're going through a procurement process at the moment, so I'm not in a position to comment on that until that process is completed.
The member for Ashford.
Supplementary,
the
sir.
member for Ashford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Youth and Volunteers. Minister, how is the government supporting young people to volunteer in their local communities?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and can I thank the member for Ashford for her question. Our government values our volunteers. They make a significant contribution to local community organisations and groups across South Australia each and every day. We know people volunteer for a range of reasons, whether it's giving back to their local community, feeling connected to their local area, or simply because it makes them feel good. We also know it's important to support and recognise our volunteers, and the Youth Volunteer Scholarships Awards is one way our government supports young South Australians who volunteer their time and talents to help others in the community. The awards provide young volunteers with up to $3,000 to contribute towards the cost of course fees or textbooks associated with their study with a university, TAFE SA or vocational college.
Please, if you could check your inbox for me.
I thought you'd lost your mojo over the winter break. And
Every piece of information the minister has added is on the website, which I've put into your inbox.
I'll listen carefully to what the Minister has to say. Minister.
The department received more than 60 applications from dedicated young South Australians in a diverse range of volunteer roles, including the Adelaide Jail, the CFS and the SES, and Writing for the Disabled. Mr Speaker, this week 21 young South Australians will receive a Youth Volunteer Scholarship Award. I'm pleased to advise the member for Ashford 2 of the recipients reside in her electorate. The first is Bentaleitham Deligan, who is a young woman that arrived in Australia as a refugee from Ethiopia. She currently volunteers at the Australian Refugee Association and the City of Unley Council as part of their Community Visitors Scheme, which supports residents of aged care facilities who are socially isolated or lonely and would benefit from a friendly visit. Bentaleitham is passionate about giving back to her local community, creating a welcoming and inclusive community for those from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. She is studying a Bachelor of Commerce Marketing and will receive $2,000 to assist with her course fees and textbooks. The second is Kelly Stewart, another young woman who's passionate about animals. She currently volunteers with the RSPCA between 3 and 7 hours each week, fits this in between her study and personal commitments. Kelly volunteers so that more funds raised by the RSPCA can be allocated towards caring for animals. She is studying a Certificate 3 in Agriculture and will receive $1,000 to assist with her course fees and textbooks. Mr Speaker, can I congratulate each of the successful recipients of the Youth Volunteer Scholarship Award and wish them the very best with their future studies as well as their volunteering endeavours.
The Deputy Leader.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Treasurer. Has the Treasurer given permission to Renewal SA to not pay the $11.6 million dividend to the government as was identified in the budget for the 14-15 year?
I'll get back to the House and check, Madam. Sorry, Mr Speaker. I will get back to the House and check.
Supplementary.
Deputy Leader.
Does the Treasurer recall receiving a letter in late July from the Minister for Housing and Urban Development seeking authority for that dividend not to have to be paid?
Treasurer.
I received lots of correspondence. I am thinking, if I remember or not, but to be cautious, I will go back and check and get an informed answer for the Deputy Leader.
Deputy Leader.
Supplementary. Does the Treasurer have any knowledge of the Renewal SA board decision to seek approval to not have to pay the dividend as you published in the budget on the 18th of June?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if any independent statutory board didn't want to pay me a dividend. I mean, they always want to keep their money. But of course, this is the tension that occurs in formulating budgets. But look, I will get back to the House with a detailed answer, other than to say it is no surprise that independent statutory boards, when they have surplus funds, wish to use them for what they think is a fit purpose. But ultimately, the Cabinet and the budget process and the Parliament has the final say on that. But I'll get you a detailed answer. But I'm not surprised if any statutory board, whether it's Renewal SA or the Entertainment Centre or wherever it might be, has a similar view.
Supplementary on this matter, sir,
Yep.
if I may.
Yep.
Does the Treasurer have any knowledge of or granted any authority for any other statutory board to not pay its dividend for the 14-15 financial year?
Again, I don't have that information here with me, so I'll get you a detailed answer. But I'm not going to be rushed into an answer for the Deputy Leader. I'll give her a considered response to make sure I have the accurate information to the Parliament.
Deputy Leader.
A further question to the Treasurer. Has the Minister been interviewed or provided a statement or documents to the ICAC in relation to the Gilman land deal inquiry?
Well, I suspect that question is contrary to law. But, okay. Deputy Premier.
Yes, look, Mr Speaker, I think there is a certain amount of material that's been published regarding this matter in the public domain as a result of statements made by Commissioner Lander, and I think it's appropriate that, for the time being, that's where the matter remains.
Deputy Leader.
Further question to the Treasurer. As the Minister for State Development, have you been involved in any presentations to potential investors in the Adelaide Capital Partners Gillman development?
Well, I think I've answered the identical question on a previous occasion. Well, I'm acting for the government, and I'm going to say that both I and all of my ministers consistently promote to any international investors the opportunity that exists here in South Australia. If there are opportunities that allow us to promote any of the investment possibilities in South Australia, we don't hesitate to do that. And I think there was a previous, in answer to a question that was asked by the honourable member on a previous occasion, where she raised one of the clauses within the relevant agreement which committed the government, in fact, to promote elements of the ACP proposal to potential future investors. I said that was no more or less than that is no more or less than what we would do for any investor. So it was an easy commitment for us to give. So there have been. We put in front of international investors a range of investment opportunities. They consistently involve promoting our oil and gas assets. They consistently involve talking about our ambition for a mining services hub here in South Australia, consistent with our strategic plan for South Australia. And so no doubt we have, in the course of those discussions across a range of our ministries, been promoting the ACP proposal, or indeed other proposals in South Australia which speak directly to our ambitions for being an oil and gas hub for the nation.
Deputy Leader.
Given the Premier's identification of his government's commitment to make provision that and make the presentations, can he tell us how many presentations have been given in respect of the ACP deal? And if so, by who, by which ministers?
Look, I don't recall when and where those presentations may have been given, but any international investor that comes to South Australia that has an interest in these topics, or when we're travelling overseas, we promote consistently a range of opportunities in South Australia, and the ACP proposal is one of a number of them. So I don't have documented the many hundreds of potential investors that we promote what South Australia has to offer to them and to their companies. It would be an impossible task, I think, to recall all of the various investors that may be in a room at any particular time when presentations of this sort are given.
Supplementary. If the Premier has made presentations, apparently to large audiences, and he's not able to identify who is necessarily in the audience, can he at least identify on what occasions presentations have been made to potential investors in respect of this deal? And if he hasn't got that information immediately available, that he undertake to bring that back to the House.
Deputy Leader.
Take that. No. My question is to the Treasurer. Was the Gillman development discussed with oil and gas industry representatives during the Minister's trip to Canada in February this year?
Not to my recollection, but it may have been. I can't remember. I'll ask my staff. I had a number of meetings when I was in Canada with potential investors in South Australia, but I don't think the Gillman land was specifically discussed, but I'll check. What was discussed is South Australia's prospectivity in the Cooper Basin and the offshore bights. What was discussed is our prospectivity in the Otway Basin. What was discussed is that we are held in very high regard by the Canadian Fraser Institute as being one of the world's best regulators and one of the best jurisdictions to invest in this type of industry. One for sovereign risk, supportive government, supportive regulatory framework, stable taxation regimes, of course very good regulators, and I think there is quite a little of interest in South Australia, but whether the specifics or not, I'll check and get back.
Deputy Leader. Mitchell.
Sir, my question is to the Minister for Transport and Infrastructure. Can the Minister confirm that the new 92-seat double-decker airport bus has never carried more passengers on a single trip than would have fit on a regular-sized Adelaide Metro bus?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This was a matter which I had the pleasure of discussing on morning radio.
The Minister will be heard in silence. The member for Taylor's call to order.
I must admit, Mr. Speaker, I didn't seek a breakdown of the exact patronage of every service that the Jet Express JX1 service has been providing and the numbers of patrons on it, perhaps because I presumed that the member for Mitchell wouldn't be so lazy and tardy just to follow a story that had been litigated in the media previously. But nonetheless, I am happy to provide some information.
127, imputing improper motives or to make personal reflections on a member.
The reference to the member for Mitchell as lazy?
Yes, sir.
The Minister is called to order. That was unnecessary. There was nothing outwardly provocative in the question.
Supplementary, sir. Are you still going? Fair enough.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But a couple of the points that I did raise this morning, Mr. Speaker, when discussing this matter on radio, was that the idea behind introducing this service was to bring Adelaide into a consistent standard with most, if not all, of the other major cities around Australia and provide a public transport link between our major airport and the CBD, and particularly given the fine work that's been done in recent times attracting new hotel and tourism accommodation developments within the CBD, it's important that we've got such a service operating between the airport and the city. And admittedly, Mr. Speaker, patronage hasn't been to the extent that we would have liked, although I can say in trend terms, Mr. Speaker, that it has been increasing, albeit incrementally. And when we've had periods, Mr. Speaker, when there have been significant tourism events and activities within Adelaide, then we've seen a corresponding increase in the patronage on that service. And a good example is an increase in patronage in March of this year, which of course is the festival and fringe season, as well as all of the other events that we now have in March. And of course, the largest and highest number of passengers we've had on that service, most recently in July, Mr. Speaker, which correlates to the Liverpool game that we had at Adelaide Oval. And I'm also told that we had if I get the name right, the Southern University or Southern University Games, I think they were called. And we had in July approximately 2,100 people in that month, which is the highest number we've had to date. Of course, in the preceding month, Mr. Speaker, in June, where there were less tourism activities that might attract people into Adelaide to use the service from the airport to the city, we had, and I don't have the figure in front of me, but I think we had the lowest number in that month, and that's why, Mr. Speaker, the service patronage fluctuates on the JX1 service. But we, of course, Mr. Speaker, hold true to the mantra that it is important to invest in public transport services here in Adelaide to try and grow patronage on our network. It's good in this instance for tourism, and it's good in general terms to alleviate the congestion on our roads and provide people with another option of moving about our communities. And I should add, Mr. Speaker, that the service that we're discussing, the Jet Express JX1 service that operates between the airport and the CBD, is something that we've been discussing with the airport as well. And I think both the government and the airport recognise the need to improve visibility of the service, to improve signage and information about the service. And there's also an opportunity to replicate those efforts, not just at the airport, but of course at the hotels and other accommodation services where tourists might be staying in Adelaide.
The member for Mount Gambier is warned for the second and final time. Member for Mitchell.
Thank you, sir. And my question is to the Minister for Transport and Infrastructure. Under the contract with Bombardier, when were all electric trains supposed to be supplied and fully operational?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I don't have that date in front of me, but I understood that we were expecting to receive those trains around about the middle of 2015. We are still receiving those trains. The vast majority of them are in service at the moment. We're still waiting to receive the final trains. But pleasingly, Mr Speaker, as part of that program, we've been able to substantially increase the size of the train fleet that we have servicing our metropolitan train lines. I'll check these figures and come back to the House with a correction, but from recollection, Mr Speaker, by purchasing these new 4,000 class electric multiple unit trains, we are adding the equivalent of 66 rail carriages in 22 three-car sets through the new purchase, and able to, as there was a fleeting reference amongst some of the unpleasantness yesterday, also retiring the 2,000 class 40-year-old approximately diesel trains. And notwithstanding the retirement of those trains, Mr Speaker, there is still a significant increase in the size of the fleet. I understand from, I think it's off the top of my head, 99 rail carriage equivalents up to 136. So over a third we're growing the fleet, Mr Speaker, and once again another reflection of how this government is working hard and investing resources to grow our public transport services, in particular the vehicles on which we provide those services.
Was there a clause in the contract that if the trains weren't delivered on time that a claim could be made against Bombardier, and is the government making that claim against Bombardier for their delay in delivery of those new electric trains?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'll come back to the House with a response on that.
Supplementary, sir. Given the Minister mentioned the 2000 series class, the jumbos, the old trains that are being retired, when were they supposed to be retired and when will they be retired from the service?
Minister.
My understanding, Mr Speaker, is that they've been retired from regular services for a number of weeks now, yet they haven't been fully decommissioned in case of any future desire to bring them out or to bring them back out onto the lines to be used, for example, if we were running special events where we needed to increase the size of the fleet. I mean, Deputy Leader might be well placed to comment on those sorts of matters.
The member for Newland is called to order. It's my pleasure to call him to order, and the Deputy Leader is warned for the second and final time. Member for Mitchell.
Supplementary, sir. Given that the Minister's talked about the extra train carriages that we have now and having to link 2 3-car sets together to make a bigger service, how many stations on the southern lines are not long enough to actually hold 2 3-car sets stuck together? Henceforth, the last train hangs over the edge and people can't get on and off on that carriage.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, perhaps just to address a couple of the ways in which that question was framed. It's not the need to couple 2 3-car EMU sets. It's the desire to couple these train sets together in an effort to provide a substantially larger service for a train movement into the city. Yes, I'm coming to that. We've got some time left. So, Mr Speaker, off the top of my head, I think there's some 22 or perhaps 24 stops along the Seaford line. And with the limited stop service that we introduced, I think in July last year, those limited stops were focused to be those stops where we had the highest numbers of patrons using the trains. I think 5 in the limited stop service. And of course, 6. I'm corrected by the member for Ghana, who of course is a frequent train traveller, and not for long. And of course, we make decisions, Mr. Speaker, to run those larger services, as we have been for the Footy Express services in particular, to make best use of those 6-car sets, equivalents, I should say. There would never be any intention, Mr. Speaker, of running those double-card services, particularly during limited stop express runs into the city at each station. The fact that we can't accommodate these 6-car sets along every station on the Seaford line should be of no alarm to people, Mr. Speaker. This is a... Well, at least the member for Unley got a good view, Mr. Speaker. With that, I might conclude my remarks.
The Deputy Leader.
Thank you. I have a question for the Minister for Transport and Infrastructure. Could the Minister advise the House whether works have started on the Oban project before it has been considered by the Public Works Committee? And if not, why are there dozens of trucks and loaded material all lined up along Hackney Road, what appear to be undertaking works as we speak?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, as to the dozens of trucks lined up down Hackney Road, that is, of course, one of the reasons for the Oban project, is to provide more road pavement surface and an increase to the road area for all vehicles, for cars, for trucks, let alone the many hundreds of buses that use that route in the morning. Whether the trucks... Well, I'm not sure if the Deputy Leader has vox-popped or door-knocked all of those trucks to ascertain the purpose of them. But I'm sure there are many hundreds of trucks, if not thousands of trucks, that traverse that part of the inner-city ring route, Mr. Speaker. Well, I know we're in trouble when the Leader's bellowing out across the chamber again in a desperate attempt for attention, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Stewart is called to order. The member for Napier.
Thank you, sir. My question is to the Minister for Mineral Resources and Energy. Is the Minister aware of the inaugural Top 20 Australian gas leaders list? And if so, is there anything about this list of which South Australia can be proud?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I thank... Sorry? Oh, okay. Thank you to the member for his question and his keen interest in the investment in jobs and prosperity generated by South Australian oil and gas industry. It's been brought to my attention that Gas Today, a magazine dedicated to reporting on the natural gas sector from upstream through to export and the offshore industry, this year began to publish a top 20 list of Australian gas leaders. Gas Today, alas no. Gas Today says it's a list is a mix of influential gas stalwarts and upcoming visionaries who have made a significant impact on our nation's gas industry. Mr. Speaker, I am delighted to say that this list rightfully acknowledges South Australia's contribution to the national gas industry.
He's looked up the medical one.
Yes. Coming in at number 1, Mr. Speaker, is Mr. Barry Goldstein.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. By the Minister's own inference, this information is publicly available on gastoday.com.au.
Has the member for Schubert sent this to me?
It's a PDF, which is available on...
Yes, you may.
Is there anything about this list which can make South Australia proud. That is what I'm expanding on, as opposed to... Anyway. I'm delighted to say that this list rightfully acknowledges one of South Australia's own. Coming in at number 1 is Barry Goldstein, the Executive Director of the Energy Resources Division of the Department of State Development. Barry was recognised by Gas Today for his unique contribution to the industry through bringing his bad jokes, his decades of experience as an exploration manager and chief geologist to bear in his work as a regulator. In his role with the Department of State Development, he has helped to design and implement efficient and effective legislation, government policy and regulation. Barry is one of only 2 industry regulators to make that inaugural list. His inclusion builds on the other accolades he has received from the industry in recent years. In 2014, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Award by the Petroleum Exploration Society of Australia to match the American Association of Petroleum Geologists Distinguished Service Award he received in 2008. In 2013, the Australian Petroleum Production and Exploration Association conferred on him the Lewis G. Weeks Gold Award. The award winner must have an outstanding contribution to the art, science or practice of petroleum exploration by demonstrating distinguished service to the industry in the development or application of exploration techniques or in teaching. Barry's service to the government and Australia was acknowledged with a Public Service Medal in the Australian National New Year's Honours List in 2014. Mr Goldstein has played an integral part in establishing the roundtable that is helping to guide the implementation of the Roadmap for Unconventional Gas projects here in South Australia, and the Roadmap has made South Australia the epicentre for the energy revolution gripping this industry. His experience and expertise would undoubtedly be a factor in the further expansion of the Cooper Basin, which has already grown to become Australia's largest onshore oil province during his stewardship. Mr Speaker, it's never been more important to support the hard-working and diligent regulators of this state at a time when vocal interest groups seek to undermine the credibility of risk management and environmental assessment. Member for Mount Gambier. Regulators are often accused of being too close to the industry as they are regulated by activists.
Yes, the Minister should wind up now.
Oh, thank you, sir. Regulators are often accused of being too close to the industries that they're regulated by activists who aren't willing or simply too afraid to win arguments based on facts and scientific advice.
Yes, I think that's enough. The member for Davenport.
Thank you, sir. My question is to the Minister for Transport and Infrastructure. Can the Minister please advise how much of the $1.7 million that he has allocated to better coordinate SA roads conditions will be spent on improving the central corridor through the Mitcham Hills area to deliver road safety for residents and reduce peak hour bottlenecks?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, we haven't made a decision on the allocation of that $1.7 million. We've had a consultation process which closed 7 days ago, Mr Speaker, and we intend to come back out with some further detail on the next stages of Operation Moving Traffic.
The member for Adelaide.
My question is to the Minister for Social Housing. Minister, is there a cap on the number of times a tenant can access the private rental assistance scheme, particularly after having previously forfeited their bond?
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Adelaide for her interest in this area. I think we should be really clear that many of the people that access multiple bonds are some of our most vulnerable people. We have the Housing SA system where we provide houses, more than 40,000, but we also support almost equally amount the people in the private rental market, many who are low-income earners, many who are quite vulnerable. At the moment, I am concerned about the amount of debt that we are seeing to increase in private rental, but I am quite concerned that we must be clear to understand those who have sought to look for multiple bonds. Often we see people who are in crisis, they're escaping domestic or family violence or have severe mental illness. Often they might have had a multiple bond because they've gone from a boarding house to transitional accommodation and then maybe into private rental. So I acknowledge that there is some work to be done, and in fact I'm going through a root and branch review at the moment about debt, but I think we should be clear that many people that apply for multiple bonds do have some serious issues, and one of the key things that I want to look at We're rolling out a new service reform for Housing SA clients. We're looking at early intervention. I'd like to look at us expanding that service to supporting those people within private rental who also need that support.
Supplementary, Member for Adelaide.
I think the minister might be misunderstanding. I'm not talking about people having multiple houses and you look after the house, you get your bond back and then you reapply for another bond. That would be limitless because there's no cost to the taxpayer.
It's not debate, just ask a question.
How many times after losing their bond due to the damage they've done to the house, how many times can they have another bond and another bond and another bond? Is there a cap?
Is there a limit?
At this point, there is no cap. What we look at is individual situations. Let me be clear, people with debt, and we have tenants and non-tenants, 84% of people have an arrangement to pay us back. One of the key things that I'm looking with the department is increasing that range to pay back. Different techniques that we can use, of course. We have some private facilities where people, obviously debt collectors, that they go. But let's be clear, people. Let's be clear that people are seeking multiple bonds because they've often had to flee violence in the home. So I want to look at this very closely and understand how we can support those people better, including enabling them to be able to save, to have enough money to cover that bond, which will give them some more choices in the future.
Members may be curious about filming from the my upper left in the mezzanine, which I understand is done on the authorisation of the member for Morialto. The member did canvass it with me. It's within the current rules. However, if it were, let us say, cut and pasted Today Tonight style or used for electioneering, that would lead to a cycle of retaliation that would be most unseemly.